Fire. That was what had caused Firehound to double back. And that made Gloria pay attention. She sniffed and nutted to the wolf, then me. And with that, an entire conversation had taken place. Gloria, Firehound, and I spread out, making ourselves as hard to spot as possible. It took an extra second for Sarah to catch up and bring Jane in hiding with her. Don't get me wrong, that's not a judgment on her wits. It's just that we had the advantage of being a pack working together for years and being spiritually linked by the spirit of the northern winds. We approached slowly, carefully, most of us in lupus form so as to make it easier to hide, or dash. We saw Edith long before she saw us. Studying her while Gloria and Firehound scouted the perimeter, she was softly crying while burning the splinters of her former self's work. Most of it had been destroyed in Firehound's frenzy, but Edith had apparently decided to take it a bit further, purifying with fire. To be honest, we really should have done that ourselves by now. That and cleanse the entire area. We'd been sloppy. Further evidence that we really needed a third in our pack. When Gloria gave the okay, Jane stepped out of the bushes, still in lupus. Sarah yelped in startlement and bit Jane's heel to drag her back. It must have sounded super weird for Edith, but she didn't turn back in time. She'd been lost in thought. As she wiped away some tears to see better, Jane stepped into view in a more appropriate shape. Edith, everything okay? Jane offered the distraught teenager. Not really, but I'll manage thanks to you. Are you okay? She replied upon noticing the expression of close call-induced panic still visible on Jane's face. Never better, she lied. Need a hand? The pair got to work in silence. Jane did not know what to say. It's not like you can just go, hey, sorry you got possessed by an evil spirit and almost turned into a mass-murdering monster. How was your day? You know? So they just brought wood to the fire in silence, back and forth. Which was fine for the wood and rope, but the tools and weapons weren't going to just burn to oblivion. Edith was pondering the problem when Jane offered to take care of that for her, figuring correctly that if we could do a rite of cleansing to purify the soul of a soon-to-be Fomurai, we could probably do something about a couple of tainted saws and power tools. Eventually, the silence got awkward enough that Edith spoke. I'm lost. I understand science and computers. All that tells me is that I had some sort of psychotic episode. I fell into a weird downward spiral of self-loathing and anger, and I took it out on the world. I couldn't think clearly anymore. Not unless I was coming up with a new trap, a new game. As disturbing as that is, it makes some sense, but science doesn't explain how you stopped it. You and the people you were with. You knew what was going on and you fixed it. It sure as hell wasn't like any therapy I'd ever heard about. You just danced and yelled and sprayed me with God knows what, and you fixed me. You just stopped the dark, unwanted thoughts that came unbidden in my head. Whatever I heard, whatever that was, it is gone, and that makes no sense. She was getting worked up and took a second to calm down. Edith, I can't, Jane began. But Edith didn't let her speak. I know, Jane. I mean, I don't know, but I know you can't speak. If you and people like you could talk, these things, they would be out there. Everyone would know about it. So I'm not asking you to explain. I don't want to know. I want to fucking forget, but I can't forget. Not while I know it can happen again. So here, take that. Take it. Edith urged her to take a small USB key she had taken out of her coat pocket. I don't know how that ties into all of this, but It does, doesn't it? I've seen you taking interest in it. I've got one right about when I started. Vicky got one too, and, well, she was clearly losing it too. Like me. I guess you couldn't save her. I didn't know then what I know now, Jane explained, staring at the key in her hands. Lucky me then, Edith replied. You and yours. You're good people. I trust you'll do what needs to be done, but I'm out. I need to move on. I've done my part. Tearing up again, she left. We got out of hiding and continued to work, burning everything we could while Sarah and Jane worked on the rite of cleansing for everything we couldn't. By now, Jane had actively participated in dozens of those. If you remember the last time we were here, Sarah absorbed major bad juju to make sure the psychomechia would never reform. It just wouldn't do for the Master of the Rite to carry that around the purest parts of the cairn, so Vivid Keen had performed the rite on Sarah daily, most of the time with Jane helping out. She was getting quite good at it, maybe seeing how it saved her friend and knowing painfully well what happens when we're too late had given her a particular appreciation for it. We were maybe halfway done when Sarah's demeanor changed. She tensed up, looked around as if she was hearing things none of us could, which was exactly the case. As an experienced surgeon, she had learned gifts that would let spirit easily warn her of dangers. "Scryers!" she yelled. "They can't be allowed to see the cub." Without hesitation, she used the reflection on a bladed tool and stepped sideways to fight. We looked at each other, then at Jane. We could use Firehound's stronger spiritual connection to cross over as a pack, but Jane wasn't officially spiritually linked. She'd have to cross on her own, which would be dangerous as hell. We didn't have time to explain. We gave her a look, hoping she'd understand it meant stay put, and crossed over. See, the thing we didn't have time to explain is that scryers, or as I like to call them, little fucking bastards, are the worm's spies. They're low-level, fleshy eyeballs, super easy to rip apart, but they serve one bigger, badder Bane whom they share a mental link with. In other words, if any of them saw Jane, that probably means something else did too. Something dangerous, something clever, something probably in league with whatever was producing the Fumrai or the dancers or both. It meant Jane's cover would be blown, and they'd be coming for her, or even her mother Jill, and we could not have that, could we? It didn't take long for us to cross, maybe half a minute, but every second mattered. Sarah had gotten warned in advance, but we didn't know how long we had. We arrived to see Sarah swarmed by 5 Uralaths, a mindless warrior breed of Banes that looked like bipedal hounds. Not very dangerous on their own, but they always attacked in large packs, and that gave them an edge. And yes, the worm totally stole our move on that one. She wasn't doing great. Sarah's awesome, but she's no Around, and these Banes are built specifically to swarm lone Garou. It was nothing short of a miracle that she'd lasted long enough for us to make it. She'd made liberal use of the gifts she'd learned over the years. One of them, Spirit Ward, had a strong debilitating effect on any spirit inside of it, making them slower, less precise, weaker. I hear it even drains them of their essence continuously. She'd also used Command Spirit to force one of the Uralaths to attack his friend. It had only been one attack, but the other one didn't know that, so a real fight had broken out between them, leaving Sarah to deal with the other 3 until we arrived. Only one of them seemed wounded, while Sarah had several gashes trying to regenerate. Gloria did not miss a beat. I hadn't even taken my first breath of umbral air that she was already roaring her rage at the bipedal hounds, charging in without care. On the upside, she felled the wounded Uralath before it understood it was in danger. On the downside, discharging Olker and Kryno seemed enough of a threat for the 2 who'd been fighting to refocus on the Around. 2 in Gloria, 2 in Sarah. Much better. Those were odds I'd bet money on, leaving the scryers to me and Firehound, but we had no idea where they were, and we couldn't ask the Glade Children spirits. that did not seem to bother Firehound, who did what he usually did and slipped out of sight. I looked around, lost. No clue on what to do. Then my ears picked up more banes, coming in from the south. Some slow moaning sounds, which meant scrags, another common warrior breed, spirits of murder specifically. They pretty much look and sound like ghouls or zombies. About as smart too, really. Not super strong either, but a great distraction, especially in large numbers. I thought, if the scryers hadn't come with the Uralaths, maybe they were coming in with the scrags. Tactically, it made sense. Let the battle start. Send your expendable banes first. And then, when everyone is too busy to look up the trees, sneak in, watch and learn. They'd see how many of us there were, how organized, how powerful. It was too late to stop it now, but as a Galliard, I could try and make all of those eyes turn on me. Hopefully, that would leave the enemy with very little usable intel. I got down on all fours, used an old gif a cheetah spirit once told me. It lets me run twice as fast as I normally do, which is already pretty damn fast. When I was close to the scrags, I made a 90-degree turn, ran a little longer, then turned around and screamed my lungs out. As I did, I evoked another clever trick I learned. This gift forces any worm spirit in the region to come to me. That meant the scrags nearby, and hopefully the scryers that might be with them. The scrags came in droves, but I knew they couldn't catch up to me. I ran laps around them. Whenever one fell or broke from the group, I'd zero in on it, landing a strike and getting the hell out of dodge. I knew I could never take them head on, but I could do this for a while. If they landed a hit or two, that was fine. I'd regenerate and dive back in. My cardio wouldn't last forever, but I could thin the herd long enough to spot the scryers. At least that was the plan, but as I ripped off the spine from a scrag, a weird-looking creature fell next to me. It took a second to realize that it used to be an eye on a flesh-brown body with 4 hooks as legs. Perfect to run along trees and jump from branch to branch. This particular one had its large eye ripped out of its socket. I glanced and saw a bright white form weave in and out of the canopy, lunging from one scryer to the next, barely slowing down for each kill. I guess Firehound decided to show off? Well, okay then. That left me to handle the scrags on my own. I was getting winded by now. I decided to make 3 more laps, take down as many as I could, then make it back to Gloria and Sarah. Surely they were done by now and I could use the help to clean up. I took down 2 more by fueling my rage into my attacks, viciously ripping and tearing anything in range. They did as much, to be honest. I did not come out of that unscathed. Running was going to be an issue until I could heal back up and I couldn't see Firehound anymore. I did see a half a dozen dead scryer though. I mean, I love him, I do, but sometimes it's hard to plan when you have no clue where your backup is. Or even if it's there at all, you know? So I had to buy time until I could sprint. So what I did is I baited them while backing out and out and out. But there were still so many of the damn things. They were boxing me in. When I was ready, I made a desperate dash through them, ramming into 2 and grabbing a third by the head with my jaws. I'd made my opening and I paid for it in blood. On the other side of their line, I had a clear shot back to Gloria and Sarah, which I took. Firehound fell into stride beside me as I ran. When we got there, we were surprised to see Jane in Crynal's form, digging her claws deep into the last of a second pack of Uralaths. She took a step back, looking fierce as hell, turning furiously towards us, slick blood flicking from her fur as she did. "You left me!" she screamed angrily at the gathering. "We had to protect you," Sarah called out. "I got this," Jane barked back, throwing Uralath flesh and bone in the older Turget's general direction. "Evidently, you do," I said, trying to calm her down. "But what about the mission? If they identify you, then the entire school plan is toast." That seemed to register. But Garou's rage is strong. She wasn't just going to swallow this easily. "Speaking of," Gloria stepped in, Stay in Krynos and do not call out anyone's names. There may still be scryers around. Whatever anger Jane still felt, she didn't seem willing to pick it up with Gloria. Her eyes screamed murder, but her body language showed submission. There aren't any left, I think, replied Firehound. But we should be careful, nonetheless. In any event, I added, we have about a dozen scrags inbound. Let me go in first, Gloria instantly said, stepping up to the challenge. I'll take the brunt of their attacks. You all take them out while they are distracted. We all knew this meant she'd be under heavy fire, but scrags, as previously discussed, are pretty stupid. They would go for it and make easy targets for us. I did not love the plan, but I didn't have it in me to argue with the Silver Fang. Something in her eye told me we were going to make it, that everything was going to be fine. She howled up to the moon as her entire body began shimmering in protective moonlight, then dove right in. We all howled and went in after her. We didn't shimmer, though, because none of us knew the gift, but yeah. So we didn't look quite as cool as she did. As you know, Gloria doesn't use her claws to fight, because they break off easily. But she can punch. Krynos punching you in the face is still a pretty convincing argument that now is a pretty good time to die. And if that wasn't enough, biting your head off usually won most arguments of that nature. So she set out to do both in excessive measures while we took every opportunity to take one down ourselves. In the end, she was right. It did turn out okay. Wasn't even a fair fight. I'm not even entirely sure she needed us. I mean, yes, but also, did she? Part of me still wonders if she was just making us participate so that we didn't feel left out. When we were done, we decided not to risk stepping sideways again. Instead, we walked back to the sept. Had Edith laid a trap, or was the enemy more clever than we gave them credit for, stalking Edith's kill zone in case we ever came back? And what the heck was on that damn key? You were so impressive, Gloria. Scary even. And somehow breathtaking at the same time, said Jane later on, after she had time to cool down. Thanks, Jane, answered the Arrow. It's no big deal. It's kind of what I do. As a Silver Fang? Inquired Jane. What? No, as an Arrow. I mean, yes, well, I guess being Silver Fang helps with the breathtaking bit, but it's not what I do. It's not what I am. That's just being born from a long line of people who made damn sure to keep their blood as strong and pure as they could, until they fucked up and made me a Garou born anyway. What do you mean? Gloria took a deep breath and sighed. She had to know this moment would come. Who better to teach about the Fangs after all? Ah, shit. Might as well do this now. Some of what I have to say might not jive too well with what Sarah just said, but here we go. We're the tribe of kings. Our whole entire shtick is that if Garou are chosen by Gaia, we are the chosen among the chosen. Wow. No pressure or anything, Jane cut off before she could stop herself. But Gloria didn't find offense in it and pursued. No kidding. When you're so-called purebred, people expect excellence from you. And we're all about pure lineages and inheritance. Pressure is our fucking way of life, but you learn to master grace under fire. You make sure to never let it show. That said, there's more to us than that, because we have the fucking crown. This claim that we are somehow better is actually backed up by the spirits, which is weird because, contrary to the goddamn party line, we just keep fucking up. Gloria was getting heated up, but that did not stop Jane from interjecting. Wait, hold the fuck up. We had this whole thing about spirits having a role in who ranks up, and that I should trust them to know better, and you drop this on me now? Gloria swallowed, cooling her already warmed up jets. Okay, sit down, kid. This is gonna get complicated and more than a little confusing, so let me get to my goddamn point. Have you ever heard the name Baba Yaga? shuddering silence. Not really, Jane answered, feeling queasy. Horace mentioned the name once or twice in passing, but I don't know what that is. On their own, the words just mean old hag. But she's also this creature that keeps showing up in old Russian folklore. Her teeth are sometimes ragged and sometimes made of metal. Her hut has enchanted chicken legs, so it is never found in the same place twice. And she herself is neither good or evil. She simply is a force of nature that represents Russia itself. As such, sometimes she helps the heroes save the day, and sometimes she bakes children into pies. That makes no sense, Jane interrupted. What does a fictional character have to do with anything? Mythical. Mythical, not fictional. She is a creature of myth, not made-up stories to scare children. She had everything to do with recent Garou history, because myths have a tendency to be based on terrible truths. And the Baba Yaga is, well, hopefully was, as real as you or me. Mind you, I don't know about her being a neutral force of nature, but if she was, she had a bone to pick with a lot of folks. It is widely believed that she was a vampire of impossible age and power who woke up in 1991. For the next 3 years, she waged a war against her own kind, destroying the vampires that stood in her way or those just too powerful to be allowed to live. The Silent Striders of Russia tried to warn the other Garou, and risked much to find evidence of this war. In the process of getting the vampires under her heel, she erected what is known as the Shadow Curtain, a spell preventing all supernatural creatures from crossing the borders of Russia. As an after effect of the spell, the gauntlet became so thick, crossing it became downright dangerous. We lost countless Garou that way, and even cairns. As they lost the connection to the Umbra, some of them dreamed of noses and died out, their caretakers helpless. Russia is 1/16 the size of the entire planet. Think about that. Think about how many Garou and how many septs were affected. When I say that those Garou were crushed in 3 years, and they weren't even being targeted. In 1994, the real attacks began. It seemed every month one great leader after another fell in battle. As the septs were destroyed one after the other, no one was spared. The savagery of the hag and her armies of vampires, black spiral dancers, Fomori, and Banes. Although the little brother tribe did manage to hold out on their own, and the glassworkers, they were targeted last because, well, perhaps because they were in the cities, which was anathema to the hag. Oh, and the older brother tribe. The hag was curious about their magics and tried to woo them into her service. It almost worked, until she made the mistake of asking how to release the great dragon Trevero. They saw then how she could never be trusted, and joined in the fight. Kind of way too fucking late if you ask me, but I wasn't there. In the end, the only thing holding the Garou together were 3 of our best and brightest. Chase's street demons, wielder of the twin swords of Lord Hare. Pyotr Volks, a legend among legends and sept leader of the Sept of the Crescent Moon. And of course, Lord Arcady, the very definition of a purebred warrior. To be fair, they were not alone. At their sides were Mother's Pride from the Black Furies, Anton Nordenskjöld of the Fenrir. Both were proven on the field of battle and great generals. And finally, their advisor, Qian San of the Stargazers. The Garou traded territory and lives in exchange for time. Time to organize. Time to mount proper defenses. Time to end the Baba Yaga. It had been Pyotr Volk who had a vision of the Firebird crystal, resting deep into the dark Umbra, the lands of the dead. Day and night, he poured into research and sent soldiers to search for it. None were successful until his niece, Tamara Dvarovich. The crystal itself was so potent that Pyotr, even attempting to master it, it destroyed Pyotr's mind, leaving Tamara young and untested, at the helm of the resistance. None of that was helped by the fact that the Shadow Lords were up to their usual tricks, trying to undermine Silverfang leadership by backdoor dealings and shady exchanges. But despite it all, by 1997, the Garou were ready to go on the offensive. We took heavy losses at first, but we pushed the enemy back further and further, regaining our lands. Just as the enemy thought they had won, they suddenly found themselves suffering loss after loss. Not one to be so easily undone, the Hag mounted 2 massive strikes against the Silverfangs of House Wiseheart and Little Brother, who'd actually managed to stand their ground. Little Brother stood, once again, undefeated, but the Silverfangs of House Wiseheart were exterminated, and their allies, the Stargazers, led by the aforementioned Chiang San, only survived because the Hag had to redirect all her armies to one of the most decisive battles in Garou history, the Battle of Kurst in November of 1997. Without a doubt, one of the most fearsome members of the Baba Yaga's army was the Zmei Gerdgormus, another dragon. Most confrontations against one of the dreaded Zmei had historically led to bitter defeat, but this time we went all in, and I mean all in. Almost every surviving werewolf in Russia rushed in a frenzied haste to its roost in Kurst to take it down once and for all. As I said, the Hag redirected her entire army to destroy us all, but the days of easily picking off disorganized Garou were well and truly over. We came in waves. We came in droves, one after the other, armed with our strongest fetish and best rituals. We were outnumbered 5-1, but we were winning. Until, that is, the dragon woke up. Its scream was enough to wilt life itself. Garou died hearing it before it even joined the fight. The Hag brought in even more of her troops in support for her last offensive. And that is when we triggered our trap. Coming in through moon bridges, the last of our warriors, including some of our best warriors, not yet wounded or exhausted from battle, washed through the fray, cleaving a path through the enemy like they weren't even there, while a powerful ice spirit froze a roof above our heads, trapping Gagornis within our reach. Mother's Pride went for its wings, splashing herself in the black ichors that served as its flesh, poisoning her and taking her life. But her sacrifice grounded the great beast. Silent Striders and Silverfangs of the Ivory Priesthood drained the creature's black magic, cutting its metaphysical teeth, while Tamara Dvarovich and Anton Nordenskald went in for the kill. In the entire history of the Garou, we have only ever once killed a Zmei. This was the second and the turning point in the war against the Baba Yaga, an era known simply as the Terror, and it was about to end. When it did end, it wasn't us who killed her. With Russia now united under Queen Tamara Dvarovich, the Hag knew only defeat until her own armies had enough and killed her for us. At least, that's how the story goes, since none of us were there to see it happen. But as she died, her shadow curtain fell with her, and that's the whole entire point I'm trying to make about exactly who we, the Silverfang, are really. Under all the shine of our bloodlines and jewels, no, we didn't kill her, but we made it happen. If the Garou had not held, the curtain would still be up today. Her minions would still believe her unassailable, and they never would have turned against her. But Pyotr Volk and his niece Tamara were the shining beacon in the deadliest storm the Garou has ever known. They kept the Garou united against an immortal mythical creature, against an undefeated Zmei, against their outnumbering armies, against spells that can drain Karens without even knowing they were there, and through fucking political backstabbing from our own allies. They never relented. They did what we Fangs do best. We lead and stand against anything. Anything. That's leadership. That's unity. And that's what we stand for. That last bit was said looking squarely at Sarah, clearly indicating what she thought of her stories of the children of Gaia a few hours ago. But before Sarah could protest, Gloria continued. And then there's that fucking entitled twat Arcady. If Varovich is a prime example of what the Fangs are about, or at least what they should be about, Arcady is the reason why people occasionally buy the Shadowlord rhetoric and turns against us. When self-entitled Fangs believe they deserve everything be handed to them simply because they ask or because they're purebred, you end up with tragedies. You end up with the goddamned War of Rage. Or in this case, you end up with the Saga of the Silver Crown, which I won't tell today, but here's the cliff notes. Oldman King Isaiah Morningkill had gone mad, turned against his own people, disowning his nephew Janus Albrecht, who went and spent his days with the Bonauers in New York instead of, preparing to be the heir of the entire Garou nation. When King Morningkill died, Falcon showed up and told Albrecht that he was the rightful king and that he should quest into Umbra for the Silver Crown, which, being made of silver, was a very, very bad idea for any Garou to touch, let alone actually wear on their damned head. But apparently, the rightful king would be able to do just that, unscathed. Lo and behold, the dude actually came back safe and sound with the crown on his brow. That should have been that, but in the meantime, Arcady had ascended the throne. Mind you, this was during the Terror, so Gaia knows how he successfully crossed the curtain, but he somehow did that and found his way to America, where he straight up demanded everyone drop everything and send troops to aid in Russia. Now, I'm not saying Russia did not need our help. They clearly did. But I am saying it should not have been done by way of hostile takeover from one dude's claim that he should be king of everything, by virtue of nothing other than his fucking blood. He should have gotten the nation organized, so it was able to send aid or coordinate temporary relief while arranging for more substantial assistance. Making a real plan like Pyotr did, like Varovich did. But instead, Arcady went straight for the power grab. He won a challenge against Albrecht, using powers apparently borrowed from Black Spiral Dancer allies of all fucking things. In fact, some say he was behind the murder of King Morningkill. In the end, the crown spoke louder than Arcady's lies and betrayal. He was spared death, but exiled back to Russia, which was left to fend for itself. Long story short, stories plural. For every mad King Morningkill, there's a Tamara Dvarovich out there, doing it right. For every Arcady out there, you better believe there's an Albrecht, doing it right. So, that's us, in a nutshell. The good ones don't rule because of virtue of blood, riches, or might. That's when things inevitably go south. Fuck all that. We shine when things go so fucking dark no one else can keep us together. When the shit hits the fan, you don't need unity speeches. You need Silver Fangs to take all the pressure on their shoulders and show the fucking way. And when all that's said, my full name is Gloria Slays the Mighty Yankovic of House Unbreakable Heart, follower of the traditions of the Lodge of the Moon, Thostern and Aaron of the Pack of the Northern Expanse. But call me Gloria, because I want my deeds to scream loud enough to drown out my name. This has been A Rite to Remember Season 2, Episode 5, a series of lore videos for Legacy Werewolf the Apocalypse presented through an immersive narrative. The Silver Fang books tend to focus on purebreed, on money and political power, on duty, on the strength of etiquette and traditions. Those are common themes of the tribe. That's the obvious stuff. And for sure, a good amount of the Silver Fangs are all about that. If that's what you're into, you're set with the 2 tribe books. But if you want to have a real measure of the Silver Fangs, why they rule, why the spirits chose them, why the nation still believes in them, despite the wars of rage and pompous arrogance, is because some of them actually are the epitome of what it means to be Garou. Some of them actually rise above all of that crap and get shit done. Some of them do stand strong against the absolute worst the worm has ever offered and got their claws dirty. Nothing is as breathtaking as a Silverfang's perfect pelt, gleaming with silvery moonlight and the blood of their enemies. Battered, yes, but victorious. That is the essence of the Silverfangs. Not money, and not drinking with their little pinky up in the air, and certainly not a poorly written madness curse, which I haven't even gotten into yet. But I will, don't worry. None of that real Silverfangness is in the core book. None of that is in the tribe books. It's in random source books, like Rage Across Russia and A World of Rage. It's also in the novels. As a result, a lot of folks who've been digging the Silverfangs are folks on a power trip, or vampire players, thinking it's the Ventrue equivalent. And, I mean, you can't see what a Silverfang has to offer when all you show is them in their bright manners talking to their servants. You do that by putting them in the gutter, where the only light guiding you is the pure red rage in their eye. It's like the saying, show don't tell. Don't tell me they're the coolest. Don't tell the players they should just worship a dude's blood and die for them. Most tables just won't get behind that. Give the players and the storytellers the tools to make the characters believe it. Then, maybe the pack will die for the cause, and look damn fine doing it. Don't get me wrong, the books shouldn't negate the big shot money vibe. That's a valid character type people want to play. But for God's sake, don't make it all that most people will see. Make it clear that pomp and ceremony is an element of the tribe, not the whole thing of what the tribe is about, because that is just half the picture. And then there's that whole mess about the curse. So yeah, for those who listened to the Silent Strider episode, that's right, another ill-defined curse. Some books imply everyone knows about it, others that it's a closely guarded secret, and somehow no one has yet realized that every single one of them, except King Janus Albrecht, is moon-touched. Why are they cursed by madness? Well, according to one book, it's because they tend to marry their own family to keep their blood pure. According to another book, it's because Luna herself cursed them for their hubris. Back in prehistory, they ended up killing off the Kara, aka the Were-Sabertooth. Apparently, all the other wars of rage, whenever they killed any other breeds, didn't bother Luna so much. Whatever. Another book says, well, you get the point. At least what it does is clear. Just pick a derangement, the game term for mental illness, and you're set. Although, honestly, I'd suggest just ignoring it, unless you have a cool idea for it. And some of you do. I've heard some folks come up to me and share ideas of fantastic ways of using the curse. But if it's not a central aspect of your character, it tends to get in the way of what you're trying to portray as a Silverfang, and it makes it really hard to reconcile other Garou following the Chosen One reborn hero on a dangerous holy crusade when they're also obviously a raving lunatic. Before I go, you might be wondering what Gloria was going on about when she talked about houses and lodges. Those are pretty cool bits of extra flavor that come with the Silverfangs. Young Fangs are encouraged to join one of the lodges, although not all of them do. They both have a spiritual and philosophical aspect. In short, the Silverfangs venerate the sun just as much as they do the moon, and they venerate Gaia through them. Members of the Lodge of the Sun gravitate towards worldly affairs, focusing on issues of the physical world, whereas the Lodge of the Moon prefers to worry about spiritual issues. Houses, for their part, are sort of sub-tribes within the tribe. They all have their own histories and philosophies for you to draw inspiration from. They also serve as a quick way to make your name sound cool and important. Although a list of lineages and which houses they are associated with would have helped a lot on that front. Beyond that though, neither lodges or houses are likely to have much influence on your game unless your storyteller is really well versed in Werewolf and you're playing a Silverfang focused chronicle. Such overly bloated granularity only adds to a game if everyone at the table is enthusiastic about it. So check them out in the Silverfang tribe books if you're curious, but otherwise don't worry about it. In W5, Silverfangs are much the same with a few improvements. The Curse of Madness was toned way down and rolled into the mechanics of Harano and Oglosk, two conditions that can lead to extreme behavior in an individual. It works better this way. Sure, a few individuals may have gone off the deep end, but that's not exclusive to the Silverfang. Furthermore, they no longer have this long history of crushing failures because, well, W5 is fond of repeating that no one remembers any of the important events. For example, the book hints that the War of Rage probably happened, but that's literally all we know about it. It's not even named. If you ask me, that's a bad choice for the game as a whole, mainly because there's an entire auspice dedicated to remembering history. But in the specific context of the Silver Fangs, it really does help a ton that they aren't known to be responsible for pretty much every single mistake in Garou history. Now, they only have a recent history of failure with the fall of the Garou nation. Sure, some might blame them for it, but it's not a clear-cut situation. It's open to interpretation, and more importantly, it's open to roleplay. And I love that a lot of their gifts are honestly essential for a pack's survival, mechanically giving a reason for people to cheer when they show up. A single Fang can truly save the day. It's better than nothing. It's better than what we had, even if it's not what I would have done. I would have dropped the curse entirely and made them lose face, just so they could earn their way back to the top. Prove to the world they really are the heroes they claim to be. No more pretending or claiming glory based on a name, a pedigree, or inheritance. Do or die. That is when the Fangs really shine. Next episode, we're delving into the younger brother tribe.